right, welcome in. It is season 4 Cannabiz Conversations podcast. I'm excited for season 4. I'm really excited for today's guest. If you don't know him, by the time we're done here today, you will, and you will then follow him because he's a wonderful follow. But some housekeeping on the season. We're changing up the format. This is going to be a quick 30 minutes of hot, fun conversation about today's guest. We're not going to be having part 1, part 2. We're going to slim this thing down. We're going to bring it to you. We also have brand new sponsorship, as you can see in the corner. It is our friends at Green Lane Communication. And if you can't see the corner, check out the shirt. Yes, this is from my guy, Michael Meyer and his company. Dude, they're a great PR firm in general, but for cannabis, they absolutely rock. Bold media placements, thought leadership, turn heads. That's who these people are. If you're looking to take your PR in cannabis to the next level, and I mean seriously the next level, but you got to be ready for that. If you're ready for that, reach out to my friends at greenlanecommunication.com to get started today. All right, so everyone knows I find my guests on LinkedIn because that's my social media. And thank God I found today's guest there because it's a wonderful follow. Michael Peterson, how are you, man?
I'm having a great one. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being guest number 2 of the season. We like to start every show the same way. So here's how we start it. Tell us, Michael, how did you find this wonderful plant?
Yeah, so I come from a state that was not very fond of cannabis in general, Virginia. And Virginia is just not a great place to be compared to where I am now, Michigan. I've been in Michigan for a while. So before I was in Michigan, Virginia in high school was when it was first just really seen to me. It was something that was everywhere. I would say that it was more prevalent in a lot of cases than alcohol. I was part of the cross-country track team, so the idea of smoking to me was something that I never partook. I think also just like the brain component of cannabis as well was something to me that I really just thought about and had heard that it could, have an impact. So that just seemed something to me that I tried to hold off as long as I could. So okay. After being in high school, while seeing it all, right, like I could see the process of the transaction. I could see other people making money off of it. I could see why, but for me, it was just not a thing. And then in college, I went to a college that was very anti-cannabis. And very, I didn't realize that when I signed up. But Calvin was very anti-cannabis.
And Michael, where was your college at?
So Calvin College. Now it's Calvin University. So they changed the name after I went there. That's how you start really feeling old, right? When you,
and for those of us who are not, where's that located?
Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay, so that's in Michigan. So you're into Michigan from Virginia, but you end up at a totally anti-cannabis college.
Yes, and
by accident.
By accident. I mean, it was one of those things. My family was connected to the college, sure. And it was just like, okay, I'll go there. And turns out very anti-cannabis. Michigan, though, in general, very pro-cannabis compared to Virginia. So during my freshman year, I did a project where I researched cannabis. My grandmother was very sick with cancer, and I saw through the research how there was lots of people saying it could help with the symptoms that she was having. With her neuropathy was the biggest thing, how it was just affecting her mobility and really impacting her life. And I just knew that she would never try it. She passed away without ever trying cannabis. And I just think that's kind of unfortunate that, there's lots of people that suffer that could potentially benefit from something that they can't. She was in a state that at the time did not have the ability to get it anyways, and she would never try something that's illegal. So now being in Michigan, I had stomach problems. I had problems my whole life just with my stomach. So through that research, I saw it could potentially help me. So through the course of my time in college, I became a cannabis user. I got my med card right away. Part of that was just so that I could feel that sense of safety with my college, knowing that they were very anti-cannabis, could still get in trouble with them, but just have that little bit of security. And, if anything ever came up legally, I just know that I'm secure and doing the right thing. Right. So after college, just continued with the cannabis industry a little bit more, became a caregiver. And then from there, did more corporate side of things and got into the more business corporate side of the world. Um, doing newspaper advertisements and marketing and that kind of stuff. So total different shift. And then from there, took a little bit of a break, and here I am now, kind of doing what I am with my LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff, and getting into the actual cannabis industry, working in a dispensary.
So let's circle back to a few things. You get into it in college, you do the research, you start seeing the value firsthand, you get involved. Do me a favor, because I'm old. I like to date these conversations, right? So I've been in the
Yeah.
cannabis industry 30 years. What time frame are we talking about where you're finding this, doing this research? Grandma's sick. When is that time-wise?
That's about 12, 13 years ago, like 2013, 2014-ish.
Okay. All right. So right as things are starting to really kind of pick up the conversation of legalization, the things that are happening,
Yes.
that whole thing is really taking stake. Okay, good. I like that. So you're in. All right. So then I got to walk back another step though. So you're at a college that's anti-cannabis. You end up doing a paper or research about cannabis, I assume for school, right? How does
Yep.
that go over? What's that look like?
Totally fine. Got a decent grade on the English paper, and
Okay.
it's just kind of this weird thing of like, not really talked about. And if you get in trouble, you'd get in trouble for it, but just don't really be vocal about it. But
Yeah.
if you're okay in talking about the more medical side of things, it's just kind of this weird, I don't know, understanding of legalization. And I think now it's probably a little bit less anti-cannabis there. And I think people are just more acceptant in general as they've seen how the recreational scene has grown in Michigan and elsewhere.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, I told you a little bit pre-show. We were kind of at the forefront, my wife and I, of the medical cannabis scene in Colorado, and I grew up in the Midwest. And so Midwest was sort of, I wouldn't say anti. I mean, we all had the DARE program, which honestly is what led me to drugs, was DARE, because I don't. Somebody tells me something's that bad for me, I'm like, really? I gotta go find out. But no, when we go down that road and we look at it, Midwest. Once we got out to Colorado, this is like 2002, 2003. A lot of my buddies were doing that from the Midwest, and we had all stumbled across this medical cannabis card thing, and it just sort of exploded. Like, it felt like overnight there were dispensaries and grows and businesses, and you were just like, it's been on the books for like 3 years in Colorado. None of this was necessary. So it can happen fast, and I think people see it in states. So you're doing the college research, you become a caregiver, you obviously start to have passion for the plant. Then you go into advertising, which, any good college kid trying to make some money, that's where they end up, right? It makes sense. How do you get into the current part of the world that you're in cannabis? Why the canna business for you?
That's a great question. It just really felt like time. It felt like something that long term, like I said, I had this connection I saw back in high school, how people were able to make money off the plant, right? Very, very profitable money, like very, very good money. Right now in Michigan, that's not really the case with what we're seeing with the price compression. But there's always ways that people can make money, right? And that's really just what it came down to, is like feeling that it's time and there's that level of acceptance and everything is just kind of coming together, right? It's just all working.
Yeah, well, look, I would say to you that the price compression piece is something that is, is expected. At least it should be by now by cannabis businesses. I know states feel immune. You guys luck out. I'm down in Wisconsin, so I got to go to you, or I got to go over to Illinois, or whatever I got to do that. But thinking forth, right? Thinking ahead. With Minnesota going legal, Michigan will feel a little bit of that, right? So will Illinois. And so as the other states that have borders happen, it happened in Colorado, it happened in Oregon, as soon as these guys have other people get in the mix, it goes that way. But there's a part of what I like that you're doing, that you're just kind of showing you're kind of showing price compression. Like it was like a post recently that I saw from you, like the Pop-Tart thing, where you're basically like, look, this is that, and consumers will pay this because it's less or what have you. It's more, affordable. You're on the front lines. Are those the conversations that you're hearing in your dispensaries or overhearing your clientele having about their selection, or you trying to guide them?
I would say it just depends on the customer, right? There's different kinds of people. There's the people that want the brand stuff every single time. They're going to get the Pop-Tarts, like you're saying, and that's just what they like. And some other people just don't have that strong as a feeling. So is that question asked all the time? Oh yeah, why would I pay 35 for something when I pay 20 for something else that is just as good? Yeah, that's a question that's asked all the time. And it's just fascinating to me to see that play out and see the reasons then why people will still justify the 35 in comparison, right? See what is the differentiator. Sometimes it just doesn't make a whole ton of logical sense, but it just is what it is, right? There's just reasons that people feel the way that they do, and seeing that on a daily basis is just one aspect of why I love what I do.
So in your role though, are you advising to those discussions? Are they asking for your input? Because look, man, I've been in sales my whole life. You're in sales, right?
Yeah.
So I've been in the car business. You sell cars. People ask questions. They want to get information. They want to be educated, and then they still want to do whatever it is they want to do. But are you advising them? Are you being like, look, what are you looking for? Because I know that we like to pretend that that's what happens in every dispensary. I've been in enough dispensaries to tell you that that's not what happens. Not every bud tender gives a shit about what's in front of them, right? I know that you do. And I know a lot of folks, actually the Michigan market stands out as people who care more. I've had more issue in the Colorado market and the Cali market where it starts to feel more like Walmart. And I don't necessarily dig that. I look for a little bit of intel because every time I see you post about a brand, I realize that I have no brand loyalty except to my buddies who own Lobo. Okay. Those are my guys. Aaron and Eduardo, they're my guys. But other than that, like I don't have brand loyalty. Is brand loyalty really a thing? Like, is that something you see people go, oh, I have to have the Jeters. That's it. That's the only one, or whatever the case is.
Every day, every hour, every minute. I'm telling you, like that's why I am so obsessed with talking about all this stuff.
Yeah.
Is that for so many people, it does matter. And to your point, like you said, it doesn't matter. And then right away you're like, okay, but accept these guys.
Except for my friends, that's like you're right. That is definitely the case. But I don't go, it's weird because when I go to an alcohol, go buy booze, I only buy two kinds and always have. Do you know what I'm saying? So I am extremely brand loyal. But because I've been in the black market of this industry for so long, and now I go into the retail market, and I get a lot of people sending me stuff too as well because of the show. So you're getting things from random places, and I live in an illegal state. So when I go to retail, it's kind of I don't know. I'm on vacation, so I'm in a different mode. Like I'm not in like day to day at the dispensary mode. Can you tell us, by the way, Michael? Can you see those of us who don't live in your state? Is it obvious to you?
Pretty obvious, yeah. Just the way that they look around and are just kind of like, wow, like it's just the adult candy shop, like the feeling of just being overwhelmed, where it's like, I want everything.
Yeah. And then I do that, and I see these things that say credit cards, but what they mean is debit cards, So I'm loading up, and then I go up there, and they're like, first of all, do you have a limit? I'm like, a what? A limit? But you never tell someone they can only buy a 6-pack of beer every day. What do you mean I have a limit? And every state's like, every state's different or whatever. But and then like the weight of my gummies and the weight of my flour. I'm like, wait, hold on. You mean the gummies can't just come in a pile? Like I have to put it as a part of my weight? Anyways, I'm old school like that. But so in the dispensary, I'm fascinated by your job. I really am. So we've talked about 100 times on the show about who the consumer is. Who's the one coming in the dispensary? You're up in the Grand Rapids area. Is that right, Michael?
Yep.
Right. So that's a resorty area. There's a lot of travel in, travel out.
Yes.
Is the clientele the mom with the minivan and kids waiting outside, or is it what is it, man? Because when I'm there, I was in Colorado and my buddy who's not a cannabis user was hanging out in the car while I rolled in before I went out to my flight to go home. And he said, Sean, do you realize who just walked in this place? He goes, I had a 70-year-old lady get out of a car. I had a guy who looked like he just came from the gym. I had 2 of these guys, 3 of these girls. And I'm like, I was inside, bro. I know. Like I saw all these people. I think it's diverse. That is the case. It's not just where stoners go, right, Michael?
I would 100% agree with that. It's very diverse. It's surprising to me a lot of times. Well, so I work in the mornings. So the mornings, older crowd, people that are waking up earlier and are just going on their grocery trips a lot of times, right? Like it's just part of the errands. And
it's awesome.
like straight up, like
awesome.
it's just another piece of the grocery list. Like
it is.
It's literally it.
I wish I was going to every day.
Yeah, like I'm telling you, so that's the difference. And it's what you're saying as far as every market being different. Some of these markets aren't as advanced as that. And it's something that some other people dream of. Some other people maybe it's a nightmare scenario for others, but that's just the reality, right? Like it is going that way, and it's what I'm seeing. And you may not have that brand loyalty yet with cannabis, but you care about the Pop-Tarts, right? So you care about it with other brands. Maybe you care about it with cars. Maybe you care about it with clothing. That brands are what brands are.
Yep.
And that eventually is going to mature and develop with these different markets with cannabis brands more and more, like you said with Jeter.
Yep. I totally agree with you, man, because I realized after your Pop-Tart post that like I have preference in every other part of my life. Like I have loyalty to brand. Normally, I'm someone who is loyal to brand until brand is not loyal to me. And it's very simple for me. Yep. I'm a reciprocal human being in my relationships with business and other people. If other people want to put in the work and do it, let's do it. But if I'm the only one trying to hold expectation, then I got to keep moving.
Is what it is. You know,
everyone's what it is. It is what it is. I really want to. All right, I'm going to ask you this. So, we're about halfway here. So, with consumers in dispensaries, what do you when they're local and you see them, the regulars that you've talked about? Do the regulars buy the same brand? Do you see more brand loyalty in your regulars? I guess is what I'm trying to ask you, is what sets them apart from the different shopper, as far as bringing them back in, getting them to be that continual customer to you?
Well, there are different kinds of customers. So there's the people that do just care about brands, and they might go to different shops, right? And they shop around at different stores. So there are people that just care more about the deals. And then there are people that are those regulars at the store that I'm at, and I see them regularly. Maybe they go other places as well, but if they're doing that and seeing me regularly too, I have no clue. Like I think that the people that I see are a little bit different than other people in my dispensary, because I'm more focused on the e-commerce side. So I have people that are placing orders online, or they can call in, and then I'm fulfilling their orders, and it's more reliable in terms of they know what they're ordering online most of the time, right? So they're searching by brands, or they're searching, for different pictures and stuff like that. And that experience matters even more than for a brand, right? If a brand is able to make that online experience the same as the in-store, where they're able to know what they're getting, that's when some brands really dominate. And, a brand like Steezy or Jeter or Good Life Farms or Wild or Wana or Camino, I can go on and on and on with these guys, that it's just like Cheez-Its or Doritos,
No, for sure. No, again, with the way you say it like that, and you talk about consumer behavior and how they interact, the online portion of it's crazy, right? So again, live in a prohibition state, but when I'm in legal states, and I was down in Illinois recently, it was a kiosk scenario. There were no you. Like the girl stood next to the kiosk, and they have these weird sample boxes that aren't sample boxes, that are meant to like put on something to then bring up a screen for something. Dude, look, all right. Like,
that ain't it.
That ain't it, dude. I'm only 44 years old. That shit ain't it. That is not how I want to transact. but I went there on a referral of a good friend of mine who I trust, and I get it. She lives in the area. She vibes the place. It's all good. The vibes are cool. The colors are cool. But like, then all of a sudden there's just someone sitting behind a piece of pane with a slot, putting my bag in it, and I'm leaving. I'm thinking, I don't dig this, dude. I don't dig this experience. And because like Colorado is an open flower, right? So you walk into a Colorado dispensary, we're still cracking jars like we were back in 04, 05. That's what brings me in. I have a bad problem with top shelf. I guess if I'm brand loyal to anything, Michael, unfortunately it's top shelf because I assume there's something better. But I learned by asking my last bud tender in Colorado, like, really, what's the difference? He's like, bro, take both. He's like, take this one. Tell me what you feel. And I'd be damned if I didn't think I cared for the mid tier versus the high tier and the Pacific strain and what he, how he had recommended it type thing. Do you see people like me too, Michael? They just go right to the shelf and the brand doesn't matter. There's more of a shelf kind of loyalty.
Well, so I mean, some people care about brands, some people care more about price, right? Like it's what you were saying before, as far as like the fact that you got to have your debit card only or whatever. We're basically cash only, right? So if someone comes in with $100 cash, or they can go pull out more money, but they know what they have to work with, and so you're dealing with that, right? You have a resource that you are changing for that resource. So then it's just a matter of, do you care more about quality or do you care more about quantity? And the number one phrase that often comes up is, you get what you pay for. So, so what you were saying, you could spend $50 for an ounce or $50 for a quarter. It's just what it comes down to, right? Like, what do you want?
It's how it is. And again, in the black market, you didn't have choices like this when I was growing. It wasn't like that. You know what I mean? When names started to get introduced in a real way, it was always fun. But I always had a buddy of mine who's like, dude, I'm pretty sure they make these up back then. You know what I mean? A lot of less of that now, a lot more dedication to brands. And the way you cover it, man, it's just so great. And so please just keep doing what you're doing with your retail perspective. People need it. They need to hear from you. It's why I wanted to have you on the show. I want to get more bud tenders, more people in stores, more people in this, inside of the actual working facilities to hear the feedback, because I think it's easy to sit back and say how things should go or what we think they look like or what the best version of something is. But unless you work it and know it, I think it's hard to do that, man. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing.
I appreciate you.
And since we're on the thank yous, let's make sure we thank Green Lane Communication yet again for the sponsorship this year. We love it, man. Michael and his team are absolutely the best. If you're ready to outgrow your competition and take things to the next level, Green Lane Communication is where it's at. greenlanecommunication.com. All right, let's get into some rapid fire questions for you to close this baby out. So, first question, because the show is all about removing the stigma and uplifting the plant. In your opinion, Michael, one great way we can all help remove the stigma?
Less waste.
Ooh. Now you're talking. Look, I got my Birkenstocks on. I'm a huge Grateful Dead fan, if that wasn't obvious. My wife's trying to convince me to put solar on my house and buy a Tesla. I won't do that, though. But at the end of the day, I hate waste. I hate cannabis packaging in general. Okay, I do. I don't understand it. I got Michigan gummies upstairs where I'm still like, I think I got this bag figured out. I don't. How do we do it, Michael? Where is the biggest area from where you sit where the waste exists, man?
I think it comes down to looking at the perspective of just the entire supply chain, of the start to the middle to the end, of seeing what is not needed. A lot of times people are just adding extra packaging to make it bigger on the shelves than it actually is. And it's just not really competing for anything real, right? When everyone starts doing that, it becomes an arms race. And a lot of times that extra big packaging is just wasteful. It makes the display worse. They don't really think about how it actually is when it's on that shelf. They just have this idea of how things are supposed to be. So just in general, understanding good packaging. And again, it's why I talk about Pop-Tarts and why I talk about these other brands on the grocery side that are doing CPG correctly and that you can look to and just copy that over on the cannabis side.
Okay, so I'm with you 150%. I can't stand the packaging. I hate everything that goes on about this. I think it can be simpler. I know people didn't like our plastic bags, okay, but like I know the turtles and everything, but still, now this is like turtles beyond that with all this stuff. So you're also in touch with a lot of brands. I see you at a lot of events, at least it feels that way. Or you have a lot of communication with brands. Is that ever a question? Do anyone ever ask you about what it looks like, what the display, what else you're seeing? Is that feedback ever a loop that you get into?
It's what makes the best operators stand out to me, is how they're doing what we're talking now, just with people that are actually on the ground and doing that in all these different stores, showing up at the store. I would give a big shout out to North Coast, where like last 2 months ago, the owner came in to do a meet and greet and just like education thing early in the morning, right? Like those guys that are always out experiencing it and actually seeing it, that's the difference maker.
Michael, I had a little bit of audio breakup and I want to get the correct call out. Give me that call out again.
North Coast pressure.
North
pack.
Coast. Got it. We'll make sure we get that one tagged up by the team. I like any good tags for people for that, because that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to elevate and hear more about what's working and who's engaging, because it's such an immature industry. I know people want to think it's this or that. Guys, gals, this thing's not even federally legal. This is a state-by-state hodgepodge of information. So take what you can get, learn where you can learn. Please take the time to do it. That leads me to my next question. What advice do you have for people trying to break into the cannabis business?
Professionalism would be a big thing. I think that you can stand out just by having control of your emotions and follow through and consistency. And, again, it's just professionalism, right? That's it in one word. You'll stand out because of that. And through that professionalism, like I was saying, consistency, having just that desire to push through, understanding that 10 times you're going to be told no, but that 11th time you'll be told maybe, and maybe is good enough sometimes. It's definitely not easy. For the job I'm at now, I had to apply like over 15 times of bringing in my resume every single time. And it was something that I should have given up on, but you just have to have hope.
Well, so I'm going to circle back to this because it's that important to me. 15 times you had to apply for a job you have now. Why?
So the store that I'm at, I just felt like it was really alive. There's a bunch of stores nearby, but this store to me just stood out, and the leadership as well. Every time that I would go in and talk to a budtender, they would say how good the boss was, right? And if you have that experience over and over and over, have to look into that a little bit more. So it just seemed like a good fit, and here I am still. So got really good things to say.
Wow, man. Let me tell you, that is something. I think that is a piece of advice in itself, people, if you weren't getting it there. It's being tenacious. It's going for what you want to do, being relentless, even, I mean, in a positive way. Michael, that is some great push through, man. Again, being in sales my whole life, the word no is just a chance to get it to turn to yes. That's how I've always viewed it, but that doesn't make it easy. When I started selling cars in the late 90s, I had to use the phone book to just cold call people to see if they're interested in cars. So you want to talk about rough things to hear and people who aren't necessarily stoked you're on the other end of that phone. You get thick skin real fast. And I think that's something that can help people who are younger, Michael. I guess, is it fair that thicker skin could go maybe a little bit longer way, or is that me being old and stuck in my ways, that people should be able to deal with a little bit of adversity before maybe success is there for them?
But I kind of glossed over when talking about how I got in the cannabis industry, the 5 to 6 years where I was doing briefly, I did life insurance and did door-to-door sales. That was miserable. Did a lot of DoorDash, Uber, that kind of stuff. And I would really recommend stuff like that, even though it's not the best.
Yeah.
Things that you can do just to interact with more people and just get comfortable being out there and just increasing those repetitions of doing more and more stuff. It's all about activity and just doing more. So that's all I can really say.
I love it. The more activity, the more times you run into it, the more times you can get back up on it. All right, let's close the show out because you're a man of many different things. I am stoked to hear the answer to this final question. Your favorite way to consume right now today?
Concentrates more than anything else. I'll give a big shout out to Invest in Headies as far as being a collective group that is trying to elevate the concentrate experience and rosin more than anything else. I think that to me is a fascinating element of the brands. If you get into the rosin rabbit hole, it is deep and it's hard to get out of. So
as far as doing your research, finding what's good, because again, here I am, like as soon as I was told about concentrates, I was like, cool, let's just pick them up. Again, no loyalty. What's it going to do? I have a bad question with drugs. How long is it going to last? It's like my only question. I don't really worry about the rest of it. But I've matured a little bit with concentrates. What's your advice to concentrate buyers quickly for yourself?
There's differences. Live resin is more chemical based. Live rosin is more solventless based, where you're not using anything but heat and pressure. That is like this whole deep rabbit hole now of a whole industry developing around that. The live resin is great. That is a little bit more industrial in the sense of larger scale. Small batch of the live rosin, that's kind of like the craft industry of alcohol that's developing more and more. And I think that whole industry is just fascinating to me, and could give a shout out to 50, 100 guys that are just killing it in Michigan. And it's just really cool to see that whole community grow.
That is awesome. See, this is why you got to have more folks like Michael on the show. That's to my team. So we got to get more people like that. We got to do more of this. Michael, man, you've been absolutely outstanding with your time. I want to thank you for it. And hopefully we can continue these conversations and have you back in the future, because your perspective is absolutely outstanding.
You're a great host. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate it. As always, with the thank yous, they continue. Green Lane Communication, thank you so much for powering this season of the Cannabis Conversations. Break through the noise. There's no one better to help you. He gets big-time media placement. He knows all the industry people. Michael Meyer and his team at Green Lane Communication are absolutely it. Please check them out, greenlanecommunication.com. If you don't know, here it is one more time, greenlanecommunication.com. Thanks a lot, Michael. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have yourselves a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Wednesday for another great episode of the Cannabis Conversations podcast. Remember, remove the stigma and uplift the plant. Thanks a lot.